Hello. Hope that everyone is doing good tonight. To Dr. Brooks and to my fellow class members, my name is Gary Sanders. My major is social science, and I come to make my presentation tonight on Dr. Marilynne Robinson. Dr. Marilynne Robinson is a social theorist that I've grown to like and have been intriguing with her work and her lifelong dedication to her theories. And as we look at her tonight, I hope that we can have a better understanding of what she represented, what she has done in her lifetime. When we start out, we see the early years of Dr. Robinson. We see that she was born in Idaho, November 26, 1943, at Sandpoint, Idaho. One of the things that I discovered that her father worked in the timber industry. Her mother was a homemaker. Brother, which was David, was a famous historian or art historian. When you got a little deeper into the study, her mother was a witty person that made life fun and did things very uh, intriguingly to make things happy and fun and festive. And often she would read to Dr. Robinson. And so I think with all of that going on in her early years, it was a foundation for her to become the theorist that she has become today. When I looked at the life of Dr. Robinson, she had a fruitful life. Not that she's dead, but she's doing very well. She married in 1967 to Fred Miller Robinson. Um, and then they had two sons, James and Joseph. But even in that marriage, we see that in 1989, they divorced. She had a very extended educational history. Her undergraduate degree in 1966 with a Bachelor's of Art from Pembroke College, a Doctor of Philosophy degree from University of Washington in 1977, English. She held a position at F.W. Wendell Miller, Professor of English and a creative writing. So she had an extensive educational life, received several honorary degrees. In 2016, she was listed in Time magazine and listed of 100 most influential people. And so it was just intriguing to see that she had a very long, extensive educational background. When we review some of her novels or some of her writings, we know that she had done a lot of writings and been successful with them. But these four here is some of the highly acclaimed novels that she published and had written and has written. You see that in 1980 it was Housekeeping, 2004 it was Gilead, in 2008 it was Home, and then we see the 2014. We discovered that as she had these high acclaimed novels, one of the things that she had done that was so creative that all of them spilled or connected with each other. One came out of each other. So it was a very intriguing concept to see the novels and how she allowed her gift of writing and theories to be placed on paper and to become very, very popular in her writings. So some of the brief synopses of her acclaimed novels, when we look at them as far as Housekeeping, the main thing was loss and social construction of family. When we see the purpose of this writing, it was to share the difficulties and acceptance of death, tragedy in families, despite the undertones of Ruth in the Holy Bible and her travels with her mother-in-law. It helps to understand that death can also be an answer. It can also be not only sad, but it can also be some answers and support to one another. Then you have Gilead, the main thing, which is transgression and forgiveness. with the purpose for this writing is to show us a better way. All is not lost, and hope is always possible when we are at the door of giving up, and preparation is being made for us to in the atmosphere. So we have to have a belief. We have to understand that there's always some hope. And then there was the Home, the novel of Home, which was redemption as well as forgiveness. The purpose for this writing was to show the depressed, the deepness of love and death in families, despite healings of families and family secrets and the passing of generations. And then the last novel, where we find that the main theme is suffering and abandonment and forgiveness and rescue. A lot of times when we look at this, we find that many people struggle in life with things that are happening, but Dr. Robinson brings a new enlightenment to it, because the purpose for this writing was whether one actually wants to be rescued or can be, despite religious undertones of water, and whether it will wash away our sins or not. So it was really intriguing to see how she wrote from one stage to another in all of her books. So those was helpful in the concept of these books, excuse me. Then when we look at how, I guess what I would say, the foundation of a lot of her writings, you can see that she was a believer. She was raised in a Presbyterian, so she had strong faith in her faith. She was strong in belief in God and Jesus. And so with that, you could see how she understood how to pull it together in all of her novels. So when we look at this clip, we see that she worshiped now as a Congregationalist and remains a staunch believer, and also believed in the writings of the great theologian John Calvin, his contribution to the principles of not only culture, but just in the religious realm. His understanding of the personal sense of one can cultivate of the presence of God. One can become stronger in the presence of God. And so when we even look at the theory that she shared, it says the perception is at the center of Calvin's theology, the great energy that rips galaxies apart and also animates our slightest thoughts. She said during an interview for Christianity Today, it is for us to struggle endlessly between centering on the vision of God and the living of our lives, or giving in the self-centeredness. So God has to really be the center of everything in order for us to gain that strength that we need in order to make it in our lives and through our lives. So that was one of the major things that helped me understand Dr. Robinson, and having that Christian foundation in helping her be successful in the related writings, not only of the novels, but even in this preparation of preparing for the presentation. One of the major concepts that we look at and understand is the overview of fear. In this, she brings about two concepts or two theses. America is full of fear. America is full of fear. And so when we look at the presentation, it says in fear, Robinson is pointing out that the gun violence problem in America is a very, very high problem. It is a problem that has taken a very, very major role in America. But when we look at it from a Christian sense, the Christian concept, we should not have fear. We should not have fear. America identifies with being a Christian country, but then we have all this gun violence and all of this tragedy that's going on around our nation. People are afraid of the escalating problems of guns in the hands of the wrong people, but also fearful of guns in the hands of those who call themselves right. She speaks on lobbyists trying to relax the laws to place guns in the hands of those who do not need them. If we believe in the spirituality of this world, meaning if we just place our trust in God, then we should not be fearful. We should not have this worration and all of this that's going on in our world. So I wanted to highlight this particular saying that she brought out. She said, when Christians abandon Christian standards of behavior in the defense of Christianity, when Americans abandon American standards of conduct in the name of America, they inflict harm on themselves that would not be in the power of any enemy. As a Christian, they risk the kind of harm to themselves to which the Bible applies the the adjective, like everlasting. So we got to stick to the values of what we profess. And if we profess to be a Christian, then that's what we're going to have to stand on, is the principles of our belief. So America right now, is according to Dr. Robinson, we're in a state of fear. We're in a state of fear. Then the second thesis was about fear is not a Christian habit of mind. As a Christian, we see things differently. We see things optimistically. And that was one of the encouraging things about reading about her and studying about her, is that her Christian principles, she was a strong believer. And I personally believe in this time in which we live, we're going to have to not only join forces with her, but we're going to have to stand as Christians together in order not to have this type of mind. Because as a Christian, you can't be fearful. We see that she in her writings often expounded with biblical doctrine. Psalms 23, fear no evil, thou with me. That was one of my favorites, for when I look at the 23rd Psalm, David said, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. For he maketh me to lie down in green pastures, it leadeth me beside the still water. And yea, though I walk through the valleys and the shadow of the death, I'll fear no evil. In other words, we're living in a world that we know there's a whole lot going on. But because we have faith, our Christian habits, our Christian mind will not allow us to be a fearful person. Fear is not the trait that fits with faith. Then we note that in the second bullet, that God has not given us the spirit of fear, 2 Timothy 1:7. So Dr. Robinson refers to this and gives us the understanding that as believers, and if we believe in the Bible, and since we are a nation that's under God, then we ought to be a nation that believes in God. Gun violence and life uncertainty has to be where we believe in the spirit of God, that God is going to sustain us in times like these. And then finally, guns and violence have no place together. In other words, we need more love and compassion that will overcome any kind of hatred that can persist and saturate this nation. We will attain peace and tranquility in our country and ultimately in the world if we can just do what this presentational slide shows, that we can just erase fear, if we can erase fear out of our lives and out of our nation. So Dr. Robinson has truly impressed me, and I hope that it impressed you as much as it has impressed me with these theses, because it's very concerning to see some of the concerns that we're facing with some of the gun violence that is in our world today. So when we look at it, we find that there's a comparison of America to other nationalities of people. Europe compares us to Islam. And I wondered why. Then I answered it. Because when we think of Islam, we think of violent people. Not all Islamic brothers and sisters are violent, but for the most part, when we think of some of the things that have happened, like 9/11 and other tragic situations of Islamic faith brothers, the violent side of Islam, that it all came through by way of this gun violence and other things. So we as America now being looked the same way, or looked at as the same type of people. So this is bringing about fear. So is the fear of possessing guns to keep us safe by whatever means necessary? conforming us to the savage nations that we see throughout the world. And so this is what this picture represents. What has America become? You know, is the Statue of Liberty sinking, and what we represent all going down, all of our forefathers and the great things that this nation was built on. We're at this place now where we have to really examine ourselves and search our souls, because when we have fear channels anxiety, loneliness, prejudice, resentment. It brings a lot of harsh feelings toward one another. When if we stand on the principles of faith and believe in the God that we profess, we can do away with all of this and be brothers and sisters in love. But many times we find that in America, we're hiding behind patriotism, and we're doing it and substituting it with the needs for guns. And all of those things have caused a lot of tragedy within our nation. So joining in with this wonderful theorist, Dr. Robinson, I find it very, very appealing that she has the boldness, because not only in this writing, but her life has been dedicated to standing boldly up against gun violence and petitioning and even corresponding with our former President Obama. So as I look at the summary, or conclude with the summary tonight, Dr. Robinson has shown consistently the Christianity concepts that I can always look up to and cherish, because it's not just rules and regulations for us to believe. Christianity is a way of life for mankind. Robinson was attempting to portray through these essays the fear. The individuals of faith should be so engrossed in our Christian living that it becomes a second nature like breathing. So if we believe in God, we should not be so fearful to walk the streets or go to the park or even sit in a theater or do something constructive with our families, because we are believing in a higher power that is of God. The Christian church makes notation that we must be born again. And but Robinson presses that we need to live again. And that's what I think that we can all coincide, because when we look at the words of Jesus, he said that I came that you might have life and that you have it more abundant, not live in fear, but to live each day in health and happiness. And as Robinson reminds us, living as a Christian requires reunification from fear. We got to be able to separate ourselves and allow ourselves to be a part of a nation that stands in faith, that which we was built on, the principles of what our forefathers and our fathers of yesteryears all fought for us to have liberty and to be live in a just land. So tonight, I hope that that gives my classmates, as well as Dr. Brooks and those that are looking on, some pictures and thoughts of what Dr. Marilynne Robinson, a great theorist, have presented to us. And I fully support what she has written, and I fully support her theory. And I ask that you will do the same and pray for our country, that we'll move from fear and stand on faith. Thank you for your attention tonight.